It took hundreds of thousands of years for the human population to reach 1 billion. And in less than 200 years, that has increased to nearly 7.5 billion people. Many scientists calculate the sustainable population to be about 2 billion people, which means we need to manage our resources and food production very carefully to cater to the extra 5.5 billion people. As populations have grown, farming practices have become more intensified to maximize crop yields and ensure that we can feed our ever-growing population. Fertilizers and pesticides are used on crops, and animals may be kept inside in more densely packed sheds to maximize milk yields or egg production, or speed up the time needed for the animal to be ready to be sent to the market for meat. To learn more about conventional farming, watch our video on modern agriculture. In this video, we are going to look at an alternative to conventional farming, organic farming. We're going to see what it is in theory and the pros and cons of this method in relation to other modern agriculture methods. Organic farming currently accounts for about 1% of agricultural land worldwide. It focuses on sustainability and is thought to have less detrimental effects on the environment than conventional farming. This has led to it being proposed as an alternative to conventional agriculture for helping to overcome the climate change crisis we are currently experiencing. But the debate continues, as it is not a perfect solution. In theory, organic farming should not use chemical fertilizers, herbicides and pesticides or feed additives for livestock. It requires the farmer to use more natural alternatives. This results in lower yields, but the farmer can sell their product at a higher price because consumers believe the product is of a higher quality. Instead of fertilizers, manure is used. This recycles waste and improves the soil structure. However, it is smelly and more difficult to apply than chemical fertilizers, and also means the farmer has less control over the mineral content they are putting into their soil. Crop rotation is used to reduce diseases building up in the soils and to strengthen the soil composition. Certain crops, such as the legume family, so peas and beans, fix nitrogen from the air and increase the nitrates in the soil. This makes the soil much more fertile, and so farmers rotate legumes with their other crops. Growing multiple crops is, however, less efficient and produces lower yields than specializing in one or fewer crops. Instead of using herbicides, weeding is the preferred organic farming technique. This is of course much more environmentally friendly because it is chemical free, but it is very labor intensive. Although this does mean more jobs available, which is a great thing. Organic farming is thought to maintain the biodiversity better than conventional farming because fewer chemicals are used. There are more bumblebees and insects in the area because pesticides haven't been used. Weeds and non-crop plants can grow as herbicides aren't used. Biodiversity benefits the food chain across all levels, from the plants up to the foxes. These are the theories of organic farming, and is how we farmed for 100,000 years before the Industrial Revolution. It is generally thought that organic farming is much better for biodiversity, and also produces a healthier product because less chemicals are used on it. In the second video on organic farming, we will look at some of the problems of organic farming, and the reality of what it means to be an organic farm. We looked at the key principles of organic farming: the use of more natural alternatives instead of chemical fertilizers, herbicides and pesticides or feed additives for livestock. This all sounds great, but there is more to the story. Organic farming isn't all good. The yields are lower because more produce is damaged by pests, and carefully selected chemical pesticides cannot be used. With an ever-growing world population, we have limited land to feed everyone from. So should we therefore just focus on maximizing yields? Or to get the same yields, more land would need to be farmed. Where would this surplus land come from? Cutting down our remaining forests and rainforests? This would be far worse for the environment, both in terms of climate change and biodiversity. A study in the UK found that a litre of organic milk requires 80% more land than conventional milk to produce. That's a lot more land, and makes you wonder whether organic foods are a luxury the world just cannot afford to provide. Interestingly, it has been found that some organic farming methods require more water than non-organic alternatives, a huge problem as droughts become more regular and water more scarce. Organic is not necessarily better for the environment either. Organic dairy farms do actually produce more methane per cow than conventional farms because of the diet of the cattle. Organic cows apparently burp twice as much as conventional cows. As methane is a greenhouse gas, this does not bode well for global warming. You also need to consider the air miles of your produce. In the UK, most of the food is imported, So if there is a conventionally farmed alternative from a local source, then it may be better for the environment to opt for that product. Scientists are still fiercely debating whether conventional or organic farming has a larger environmental footprint. So let's not expect opinions to be that clear yet. In the first video on organic farming, we looked at the theories on which organic farming is built. In reality, there is more flexibility on the rules that as long as you stay within them, you can sell your produce as organic. It is actually a big misconception that organic farms cannot use any pesticides. They can, because without them, the crop yields would be much too low for the farm to be sustained. Organic farmers can use both synthetic and natural kinds of pesticides, but some of the regular pesticide chemicals are banned from organic farms. As fewer chemicals are used, there is less risk of chemicals remaining in the food, which can be a good thing for consumers. Scientists are still debating the pros and cons of organic farming in comparison to conventional farming, and there is plenty of information you can read online. The tricky part is that most articles are very biased, so don't always be swayed by the first article you read. The principles of organic farming are obviously very good for the environment, but in reality, yields matter. There is a balance to be found between looking after our soils and environment, and so employing organic strategies such as crop rotations, but having a limited amount of agricultural land and an ever-growing population. Many conventional farmers employ organic strategies to do their best for the soil structure and local biodiversity, while making use of chemicals in the lowest levels possible while still maintaining yields. So there you have organic farming. Whilst great in theory, is it practical? Can it sustain the 7.5 billion people living today? One final thing to note is that every country has its own set of rules for what organic farming means. Europe, North America and Australia have quite strict and clear rules, but organic in one country could allow more chemicals than are allowed even in conventional farming in other countries. So don't necessarily be fooled by that organic label.